Carbonite Jedi, where the Force will be with you always. Today, I was reading an article that came out on the 13th of December, and it's from Variety.com. And it says, well, let me pull it up for you real quick. Share screen. I think you'll be interested in seeing this. It said Adam Driver says Kylo Ren's original Star Wars art got overhauled. He was supposed to be the most committed to the dark side by the end. And I always thought that. I always thought, at the the Force Awakens, he kills his dad. I mean, how dark is that? You're going down a dark path, and it's really super hard to become, saved from that. And he hated Luke and how he traversed that whole path. It just seemed like, he was going to become the big bad villain, but they always had him pulling back and kind of acting wimpy. And it just, I don't know. Well, let me read the article for you before I get on my high horse. And it says, Adam Driver revealed on the Rich Eisen show that his arc as Kylo Ren in Star Wars changed from its original plan over the course of his three films: The Force Awakens 2015, The Last Jedi 2017, and The Rise of Skywalker 2019. According to the actor, Kylo Ren was never supposed to soften up and be redeemed as Ben Solo, which would have been perfect sense and made a good story. In fact, the original plan for the character was apparently just the opposite. Kylo Ren was supposed to become more evil during the trilogy, not a conflicted anti-hero. There it goes. J.J. Abrams walked me through what he wanted to do with the character, but you had to sign up and be like, I'm going to do it. And once I did that, I went to London to star for pre-production. Driver remembered about accepting the role. And it's like, there's a tiny room down the hall. You can go in there and read the script. And so I was reading it for the first time. I had an overall arc that in mind that J.J. Abrams wanted to do, Driver continued. His idea was that Kylo's journey was the opposite journey of Vader, where Vader starts the most confident and the most committed to the dark side. And then by the last movie, he's the most vulnerable and weak. Makes sense. He wanted to start with the opposite. This character was the most confused and vulnerable, which he seemed to be. And he would become confident and evil, and then he would head right back to confused and vulnerable, and it just didn't make sense. Woo! And by the end of the three movies, he would be the most committed to the dark side. I tried to keep that arc in mind, regardless if that wound up not being the journey anyway, because it changed while shooting, but I was still focused on that. Driver said Rian Johnson took Kylo Ren's original arc in a different direction with The Last Jedi. Although it still tracked with the character, that wasn't the case with The Rise of Skywalker. The last one, it changed into being, about them and the dyad, the things like that, Driver said, and evolving into Ben Solo. That was never part of it. He was Ben Solo from the beginning, but there was never a version where we'd see Ben Solo when I first signed up for it. Kylo was far from the only character in the trilogy to deviate from his or her original plan. Daisy Ridley revealed back in 2020 that her character, Rey, started out as having a connection to none other than Obi-Wan Kenobi before she ended up not having any connection to a pre-existing character in The Last Jedi. That was then retconned in The Rise of Skywalker when Rey was revealed as a descendant of Emperor Palpatine. Yeah, I remember there were like all these theories going around that she was the daughter of Obi-Wan Kenobi, or the granddaughter of Obi-Wan Kenobi, or the daughter of Luke. And it was such a yo-yo experience with these shows. Anywho, at the beginning there was toying with like an Obi-Wan connection, Ridley said at the time. There there were like different versions, and then it really went to that she was no one. Then it came to episode 9, and JJ pitched me the film and was like, "Oh yeah, Palpatine's granddaughter." I was like, "Awesome." Then 2 weeks later, he was like, "Oh, we're not sure." So it kept changing, even as we were filming. I wasn't sure what the answer was going to be. And that's all of the article. And what are your thoughts on this? I think that they blew it. I think they just completely just tossed a grenade into it and just blew it up. They should have kept the arc where Rey had the Obi-Wan Kenobi connection, and Ben Solo just like goes totally evil off the deep end. You know, more evil than Palpatine. Maybe they would have had it where he comes in and he kills Palpatine and takes over the Sith. That would have been so awesome to do that. I don't know why they didn't do that. I mean, how can you go, you know, from being, you know, confused and vulnerable to like totally evil, and then go back to confused and vulnerable and just, you know, sitting there and looking down at Luke and wanting to blast him, you know, totally evil, you know, that's your uncle, you know, you killed Han Solo, your dad. I mean, come on. And then Rey, like I said before, with Obi-Wan Kenobi, but then she ends up being no one. And then they just pull out the Emperor at the very end. You know, oh, by the way, you're the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine. That's why you have so many powers and know how to use a lightsaber without even touching one before. I don't know. It was so many missed shots in the dark, I guess. I don't know if I want to keep going on about that. My heart hurts. Anywho, I'm glad Adam Driver came out and talked about it. I always thought that, always felt that. And I think that him coming out and putting this in the article is kind of like settles me down that it was all the director's fault. The directors and the writers. Hopefully, when the next Star Wars movie comes out, if it deals with this this line, they will do something amazing. I just think they need to do something amazing to get people back into Star Wars. I mean, from what I heard, it's going to be The Mandalorian, which is not this timeline. It's right after Return of the Jedi, and like 5 or 6 years after that. And this is, what, 30 years after Return of the Jedi? I think it was like 30 or 35. And then it'll be an extra 15, if what I heard, if it's Rey doing the Jedi Academy. It'll be 15 years after the events of The Rise of Skywalker. So we'll see. I don't know. Well, that's it for this video. Join me for more Star Wars and sci-fi content, live streams and movie watches, and Black Box. Oh my gosh. Black Series unboxings. I always say Black Box. And anything sci-fi. Go to my community tab. You can see some cool polls, and I put up their like comedic pictures or whatever sometimes. Also, drop me a line. Let me know how you like the channel, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And may the Force be with you always.